Hardly a rock star, but recognition. A spring in the step after a rare and surprising moment of electoral success.
Do you want to come round a bit so we can...
Making it all the sweeter.
What a fantastic victory!
Only by a wafer-thin margin, but enough, for now, to secure his position as Labour leader. A bitterly divided campaign with ever-present security.
Well, even members of Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet said that if Labour lost here, his leadership would be in severe trouble. They won, only just.
But for now, relief.
Have you seen off the naysayers, Keir Starmer?
We have proved that the values of bringing people together, hope over division, are the right values, and this is a really important victory for Batley and Spen, really important victory for the Labour
And we're going to enjoy the day, aren't we? We're going to enjoy the day. We're going to celebrate.
Kim hasn't had any sleep or any fish yet.
Great local candidate.
Fantastic.
What about the leader?
Fantastic.
Great leader. Great local candidate, great leader.
Well, there's your answer.
An emotional moment for Labour today. Kim Leadbeater is the sister of the late Labour MP for Batley and Spen, Jo Cox, who was murdered here 5 years ago. And a poignant moment for their parents.
It's bittersweet. Obviously, we'd love that Jo was there, and it would have been amazing if they could both have been there. But yeah, I think Jo would be so proud of her as well. Jo always pushed Kim and always said to her, you're not making the most of yourself. Do something, go out there and do something. And she has done and proved that she can do it.
Kim Leadbeater saw off a challenge from the Conservatives, who'd hoped to benefit as George Galloway appealed to voters from Batley's Asian communities. The Labour MP who unseated George Galloway in Bradford West in 2015 was relieved.
Well, his campaign is what is the standard expected, which is, you know, lots of division, sowing division, exploiting grievances, and that's what happened in Batley and Spen, and the people of Batley and Spen spoke, and they rejected that. That's all I have to say on that.
Labour acknowledges that George Galloway had some success, but they believe that Kim Leadbeater made up ground by winning over Conservative voters in the more rural Spen Valley, where she held her victory rally.
Well, I think you've always got to be building that coalition of support if you're going to be in government, and that is absolutely what we are about. We've done a huge amount of listening on the doorstep, so we've got a strength of feeling from people about what they want to see more from Labour about. Foreign policy was something that did come up a lot, and we did lots of listening, lots of engagement, but you could see that we were picking up support actually from all sorts of areas where it hadn't necessarily come from in a long time. Some of that was just the positivity as Kim, as a local candidate, because she was so local. People have been to school with her, worked with her, you know, they just really flocked to her as a positive, roll up your sleeves candidate, get the job done and can deliver for the community. And that went a really, really long way. But we know we've got to get all those people with us as a Labour Party to be in government, because that's what we're all about.
And from some of Batley's Asian community, a hope that Labour has received a wake-up call.
When the local election comes, no Labour candidate comes here for a canvassing. When you have any problem and when you phone them, they're probably not, answering. So I think, this is a little bit signal to them that, they have to work hard.
Personally, I think it's been rigged. Just the amount of George Galloway supporters, I personally think there were, and the turnout, just to me, it just doesn't match up, to be honest, especially in this area as well.
Half-hearted support in the centre of Batley for the town's new MP.
A narrow win. Well, yeah, probably better than Galloway. We need to see some action. We need to see it done. If it gets done, she'll have my full support every time.
A sunnier mood for Labour after it clings on in Batley and Spen, but a warning that some communities are far from happy.
Nick Watwell, I'm joined now by Dame Margaret Beckett. She is the chair of Labour's governing body, the NEC, the party's first female deputy leader under John Smith, and was Foreign Secretary in Tony Blair's final government. Very good evening to you, Margaret Beckett. Let's just look at this result. Keir Starmer is all about Labour coming home. It's a fantastic result, he says. Let's remember, Batley and Spen is number 31 on the Tory target list, and given that they're a majority of 80, how could this possibly be spun as a big victory for Keir Starmer? The honesty surely is the best policy. You got there by the skin of your teeth.
Well, honestly, everything you just said completely ignores the events of the last however many weeks it's been. A vicious campaign, a horrible campaign, very personally directed against a candidate who should have had the benefit of her own personal circumstances, at least a little, and apparently didn't from some of those who were involved, and very much an expectation that we would lose and lose badly, and indeed various people in the campaign who were determined to bring about that result. So I don't think you should ignore all this nonsense about Batley and Spen being a cast iron safe seat. Look at the results of the last general election, where an independent stood and took a substantial number of votes, without which we might not have held the seat then. So in Hartlepool and in Batley and Spen, we were fortunate to win those seats in 2019, and that's a warning to us. That's something we have to take seriously.
Yes, because
nonsense about how it was a cast iron safe seat, rubbish, frankly.
No, I think the issue is there that there were these votes lost to George Galloway, indicating the Labour vote was split. But if you win that seat, surely what you should be doing is building on it. And usually in opposition in a by-election, you're able to build on it. That wasn't the case. And I wonder, you have been Deputy Leader and Interim Leader. You're a senior figure in the party and Chair of the NEC. When the Leader and the Deputy Leader are so obviously at odds, and there's more quotes in the Times tomorrow from Shadow Cabinet Ministers who say that she should be removed from the Shadow Cabinet, it's a disaster for any sense of cohesion, isn't it, when you've got Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer not singing out the same hymn sheet?
It sounds very much to me, and I have to say, not for the first time, both in government and in opposition. There are people who actually have no authority or experience to speak, shooting their mouths off because they like journalists to be interested in what they have to say, and they say something interesting for the benefit. Anybody in the, I heard what Nick Watt said earlier, anybody in the Shadow Cabinet who says that Keir is on probation and whatever else it was that he quoted, and cannot be described as a supporter, in my opinion, they don't belong in the Shadow Cabinet. If they can't behave themselves better and be more disciplined than that, they better go and find some other way to spend their time. That is ridiculous. Well, you can't call those supporters or allies. They're silly people buffing up their own self-conceit by blabbing to journalists. I've often heard it said, how do you get to be described in the press as a senior backbencher? By saying what journalists want to hear.
But isn't there a real danger, Margaret Beckett? Isn't there a real danger there going to be a repeat of the Blair Brown psychodrama? Keir Starmer tries to oust Angela Rayner from position as Labour Party chair. That was a very big mistake, wasn't it? Because essentially what that has done is it looks as if there's a schism at the top of the party, nothing to do with journalists.
No, it was not a big mistake. The convention that the Deputy Leader is responsible for campaigns has only been that, and only sometimes. John Prescott was the person who first really wanted that and made it the convention when he was the Deputy Leader, although I had that responsibility when I did the job. But the fact is, it's very sensible for the Deputy Leader, especially a Deputy Leader with Angela's qualities, to hold a front bench portfolio rather than to be involved in the business of campaigns. I thought it was a very sensible decision Keir made, and it's a great pity that some people chose to make a drama out of it.
Let's talk about policy now, detailed policy, because that is a criticism levelled at Keir Starmer. He had the pledges, as it were, a hangover from Jeremy Corbyn. He then ditched those pledges, including one that he promised to keep to a radical tradition. He's been leader for 13 months. He's been leader for 13 months. Doesn't he need to produce a comprehensive economic strategy right now, when 2.4 million people are coming out of furlough, when the NHS is under such stress? Don't you need detailed policies now, though you may be a long way off from a general election?
I just reject that caricature that you've just produced. He was elected in April last year. Since then, in case you noticed, we've had a pandemic. The biggest problem that you've got in opposition all the time, there are two big problems. One is to prepare for government in a sensible way, and the other one is to get across your existence and your message. Boris Johnson is playing very cleverly from the Donald Trump hymn book. He's playbook. He's having his photograph taken, having, filming in hospitals and things every day of the week, squeezing out. And I'm afraid, the profession of journalism is such. People want the good story. Boris may drop a clanger, Boris may do something silly, he's always going to be the story. And the attention that the opposition needs to get their point of view across has been completely denied us. It's a miracle that Keir has done as well as he can to get across his presence and his capacity. The one thing you can clearly say is that people can see and know that in Keir Starmer, we have a leader who is more than capable of being Prime Minister, more capable, actually, than the one we've got. It's the rest of us they're worried about, and it's the rest of us who should be paying more attention to supporting him.